Again, I thank you for this opportunity. And again, my conjecture is and remains JFK was not assassinated on November 22nd, 1963. What was proven on November 22nd, 1963, at that time, was the legal definition of conspiracy, the attempt to assassinate the President of the United States. This is now part 4 of this multi part series. And as I prepared this PowerPoint called President John F. Kennedy Assassination Attempt, November 22nd, 1963, to assist with this further deep dive, including applicable visual, photo, video clips to accompany my remarks, even deeper than my previous remarks. Ready to continue? And again, as we proceed, I want to hear your and your audience's questions, comments, aha moments along the way to make sure I've already addressed a question later in this series and to pulse where you are as well, particularly your aha moments. Okay? Oh, it's going to get very interesting, all the twists, turns, and where we end up. Surprises and aha moments all along the way. So we will now go to part 4 of the PowerPoint to continue our journey. Okay, so my conjecture is and remains that there was only one real murder, assassination that took place in Dallas, Texas on November 22nd, 1963, during the legal definition of conspiracy to assassinate the President of the United States. And that was the murder assassination of Dallas police officer J.D. Tippit. And based on my research, it is J.D. Tippit's remains buried at Arlington National Cemetery on March 14th, 1967, not JFK's. For as I remarked previously, only declassified around the June 1, 1999 timeframe, it appears to substantiate that JFK was buried out to sea in the bronze casket off the coast of Maryland and Delaware on February 18, 1966. Wait, bronze casket? Is this by chance the very same empty bronze casket seen being unloaded from Air Force One, which I have no doubt Air Force One would have had on board as a basic standard operating internal procedure, a basic protocol, would have had at least one empty casket on board Air Force One just in case. I mean, at our embassies overseas, we have empty caskets in our GSO warehouses just in case. So thus, this being the third applicable casket involved on November 22nd, 1963, and now to include being in storage and in possession of the JFK family, specifically RFK and Jackie, in preparation for when the already ailing President of the United States really passed away. And Delaware Coast. When did Biden become junior U.S. Senator for Delaware? Around the same time frame, right? And wasn't Nancy Pelosi's father heavily involved in Maryland politics at around the same time? And both Democrats, right? Now, is all that just a coincidence? Particularly since now Biden is president and Pelosi Speaker of the House, third in line of succession for the presidency. Wow. Now look at that. So is the release declassification of this fact, this bronze casket event, just a coincidence or what, given the timeline of events? The August 7, 1998 East Africa Embassy bombings in 2 Queen British Commonwealth countries, same long wedding weekend with JFK Jr. in attendance, and then about 10 months later, this June 1, 1999 JFK-related file declassification about the bronze casket being dumped out to sea on February 18, 1966. And then, less than 2 months later, on July 16, 1999, JFK Jr.'s plane crash. And where are they buried? In quotes, out to sea. Just like JFK, just like bin Laden in the bogus May 1, 2011 President Obama U.S. Navy SEAL capture kill raid. This raid that was supposedly for what? Payback for the August 7, 1998 East Africa Embassy bombings, supposedly for the deaths of 2 CIA officials at Embassy Nairobi. And that's according to CIA officials, including CIA Director at the time, Leon Panetta, and under the tenure of the Obama administration. President Barack Obama, the supposed grandson of Hitler on his mother's side, who was supported by whom to become president to begin with? Senator Ted Kennedy and Caroline Kennedy over Hillary Clinton, the supposed deceased daughter of Nazi infiltrator George Scherf Jr., aka George H.W. Bush, and Barbara Bush, the supposed illegitimate daughter of Aleister Crowley. And Hillary Clinton, the spouse of who? Bill Clinton, the supposed illegitimate son of Winston Churchill. And when was the embassy bombing? Under the tenure of President Bill Clinton. And when was I massively targeted, retaliated against? Under the tenure of President Barack Obama. And all this is not interconnected, interlinked, right? So again, given the documented reinterment event in the late evening of March 14, 1967 at Arlington National Cemetery that I previously commented, my conjecture is and remains that it is J.D. Tippit that is actually buried there in Arlington, along with, and my conjecture being, the intact brain with no bullet damage, no damage whatsoever of JFK's, thus proving and as proof that JFK was not assassinated on November 22nd, 1963. With that, these two reference documentaries need to be watched in their entirety. Though there is information in both that I do not agree with, a lot of the information in both I do. So again, I encourage all to watch both in their entirety. And for now, for the points I focused on, let's first address the caskets. The 3 caskets involved on November 22nd, 1963. 2 caskets unloaded from Air Force 2, containing now deceased JFK look-alike Dallas police officer J.D. Tippit, and the prearranged, pre-orchestrated, pre-positioned cadaver at Parkland Hospital I referenced during the part 1 of this series on Tuesday, September 20th, 2022. I will now present the applicable clipping from the JFK Truth, the Mob CIA, and the 8 Paid Assassins YouTube video, which we've viewed previously. Publication date, May 11, 2017, by Francis R. Conolly. And we are going to play this from about 34:05 to 34:50.
At the Methodist Hospital, it was felt necessary to move his body to Parkland. With their concentration firmly fixed on the casket of the deceased president, the newsmen completely ignored the ambulance which spirited away the body of J.D. Tippit, so that it could be loaded onto Air Force 2, where John Melvin Liggett was waiting. When Kennedy's casket arrived at Love Field a few minutes later, Clint Hill, the agent who jumped on the car, recalled that all the people aboard Air Force One were told they had to go forward to witness the swearing-in of Lyndon Baines Johnson. This, of course, was just a ruse to get Jackie Kennedy to leave her husband's body, and the moment she was out of the way, his cadaver was stolen and placed aboard Air Force 2 next to the cadaver of J.D. Tippit.
Next, I will play from 38:08 to 40:40.
The plotters now made their third and most stupid mistake. Instead of placing Tippit's body in a casket identical to the one aboard Air Force One, they placed him in a Spartan grey metal coffin inside a body bag. As the TV media showed these distressing pictures to a world reeling in shock, it's hardly surprising that no one ever dreamed this casket could be empty, but it was. As it was driven away, out of sight of the media, the two bodies were taken from Air Force 2 and loaded onto a helicopter. It was at this point that the two honest men, FBI agents Francis X. O'Neill and his partner, William Siebert, became crucial figures in the story. They explained to researcher David Lifton that they made the journey to the Naval Hospital at Bethesda in the car behind the hearse, which carried Jackie and Bobby, and most notably, Admiral George Berkeley, who made sure he stayed with the empty coffin by sitting on another man's lap. Upon reaching Bethesda, Siebert and O'Neill said Berkeley then guided the family members into the building while the hearse was ordered to the rear to unload. But that was where the simplicity ended. The FBI men and many other witnesses recalled a scene of absolute mayhem in which no one seemed to know what was going on, and military men were rushing around everywhere, exchanging anecdotes about decoy ambulances they had been ordered to follow, which had become high-speed chases around the hospital grounds as these vehicles raced away. It seems this confusion was created with the intention of misleading both the press and the large respectful crowd which had gathered on the lawn. People were asking each other which ambulance contained the president's body. Then a rumor started that it was coming by helicopter, but which one? Everyone watching that night recalls the air was filled with them. And the FBI men also told Lifton that in the midst of all this mayhem, they helped to carry the casket inside. This was flatly denied by the team of Navy men who said they did it alone. It is therefore perfectly clear that two bodies were brought to the morgue separately whilst confusion reigned. And it was now that the plotters themselves became confused by the mayhem they had created, because they left J.D. Tippit's cadaver in the wrong casket. It should have been switched and gone into the autopsy room and the
And the one casket, an empty bronze casket, unloaded from Air Force One. Only slightly over 2 years later, to be the referenced bronze casket buried out to sea off the Maryland-Delaware coast on February 18, 1966, my conjecture carrying the now really deceased President of the United States of America, JFK, buried out to sea where he really wanted to be buried. And for now, for the points I'm focusing on, let's address Lee Harvey Oswald. And my conjecture, he was not killed. From this video, the new look at the Zapruder film and assassination of JFK by J. Weidner and Ryder Lee, dated May 14, 2022. I will now play from 40 50 to 45:26.
A little bit of blood over there. Now here, you say yourself, okay.
Well,
what's this?
Well, then what about Oswald?
What about Oswald?
What's going on with Oswald?
What happened there? And so I pull out this iconic
photograph, which is not iconic, actually. This photograph is a very unknown photograph of Oswald's assassination by Jack Ruby. And if you look at the upper right-hand corner, you'll see that there's a shotgun mic that's been hung from the ceiling. Now, what's going on in this photograph is they're moving Oswald. This is the day after the assassination, the morning. They're moving. Oh no, this is Sunday morning. They're moving Oswald. So 2 days after the assassination, they're moving Oswald from the jail to the courthouse where he's going to be arraigned for the 2 murders that he committed that day. One was JFK, and the other was a Dallas policeman named J.D. Tippit. And so as the 2 police officers, one on each side, are taking Oswald into the court across this hallway. And so this hallway has nothing significant about it. It's just an insignificant hallway between 2 buildings. Okay, there's no reason to put a mic here because nothing significant is ever going to happen at this place. Okay, Oswald's going to be gone from here in like 10 seconds. He's going to be gone. He's going to be down the hallway, entering into the courthouse. All right. So this is just a nondescript area. But somebody decided some kind of historical event or something was going to happen here, and they put up a mic to record it. Okay, that's the first thing I want to show you.
Second, the mic is clear up here in the right-hand corner. I have my mouse circling here.
And here's the other thing, okay? We're dealing with 2 police officers and an ex-Marine here, okay? That's who these 3 people are that Ruby's coming close to. One has been in combat trained, and the other 2 have been, out in the streets doing police work for quite a few years, it looks like, right? So these are guys who don't miss anything. Their heads are on a swivel all the time. Their heads are on a swivel right now. They've got the possible assassin of the President of the United States. They don't want to be caught, screwing something up, especially with all the cameras on and everything. Yet here comes Ruby out of nowhere, and not one of these people can see him. Not one notices him. I guarantee you, I would have noticed him 3 steps earlier coming at me. I know I would have. And look at the way that their eyes are fixed, the 3 gentlemen. It's like they're all staring at one thing up ahead and making sure that whatever they do, they don't act like they see Ruby approaching, right? And the last thing I'll point out about this picture is Oswald's black sweater. So Oswald was arrested like at 2 o'clock on Friday afternoon at the movie theater in a white shirt. And it looks like he has that white shirt underneath the black sweater. But where did the black sweater come from? Somebody went to his house and got him a black sweater and gave it to him. I'm pretty sure that he was not allowed to visit anyone. So where did the black sweater come from that fit him? Where did it come from? And I would contend to you that the black sweater is there to hide the fact that there's no blood. And there is no blood. Because I've watched this film many, many times. Ruby shoots Oswald, and immediately Oswald disappears into a crowd of police officers. You can see him kind of going down, and we never see him again, ever again. It's over. So it's just this brief flash of Ruby shooting the gun, then Oswald just gets consumed by the cops, right? We just kind of take him and pull him back into the cops. We never know whatever happened to Oswald ever again. He's buried at an unknown grave. We don't know where he's buried, and I contend to you that he's in on it. And so is Ruby.
Oswald's sweater, that black sweater, and furthermore, his supposed phone call to North Carolina, Raleigh, North Carolina area, the evening of his arrest always has puzzled me. And now this further substantiation, and this too I am in agreement. Oswald's death was faked, as well as JFK's, and further substantiates my conjecture. Lee Harvey Oswald was not killed at the time of the assassination attempt. Related events of the President of the United States of America. So now on to this. Then who really shot Dallas police officer J.D. Tippit? So now I'm going to go back to the JFK Truth and the Mob, CIA and the 8 Paid Assassins. And we're going to play this part. From 3158 to 3212 of the Francis J. Conolly video.
We kill a lot of people. What the hell's the difference?
Sturgis then went on to say that Dallas police officer J.D. Tippit was actually gunned down by the radio talk show host G. Gordon Liddy, who was at that time a CIA agent working with E. Howard Hunt.
And voila. Based on all my previous remarks, based on the timeline events earlier discussed, G. Gordon Liddy, and what? Watergate, which Francis R. Conolly never mentions nor references in his documentaries. Okay, so are you starting to see the pieces of the puzzle? We'll fit more pieces all together in a bit, but in the meanwhile, I want to go back to this to highlight this point and use this as the launching pad to what I call is phase 2, the justice for the murder and assassination of J.D. Tippit. RFK, D.B. Cooper, yes, D.B. Cooper, Watergate, and of course, this Parkland throat wound, based on my conjecture, now commonly referred to and otherwise known as what? Deep throat. Deep throat, as in the secondary JFK cadaver deep throat wound, and what was always being referenced and referred to by those in the know, truly in the know. Now, we're going to play this part. From 2850 to 28.
Although they had CIA agents placed in the emergency unit, these people were not aware of the throat wound, which could hardly...
There you go. And again, so what do you think? And again, Francis R. Conolly never mentions nor references in his documentary neither Watergate nor deep throat. With that, so are you ready to continue on to part 5?